Hi, I'm Somer Hackley,
Hi, I'm Zen Mak. This is the Art of Search Hiring Manager series.
and these are stories and insights about all things hiring.
So when a hiring manager says to you, I want to hire fast, like what does that mean? What do you hear? How do you react to that?
I think that's everyone, because I think by the time they get to us, they've already exhausted every possibility. The job's been posted, or they've had recruiting work on it. They've reached out to their network. We're paying you now.
Yeah.
So we need to hire fast. So to me, I mean, I had a hiring manager tell me they needed to hire a VP by a certain holiday. And then I look at the calendar and in your head, you're like, okay. Then you look at the calendar, you're like, that's 8 weeks. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. And then you're like, it's going to take me 2 weeks to really like get going, just to
Mhm.
like get a couple good candidates in play, like get the search strategy going, get the job description written, get all this going. I need momentum. Like how to pitch the role. It takes me 2 weeks. It takes me 2 weeks. I can get candidates in 2 weeks, but it takes me 2 weeks to really wrap my head around something and be like, all right, plug and play. I can just find more people.
Mhm.
And because also there's that iteration of like, I need this actually, sometimes that
Yeah.
takes 4 weeks, but hopefully you get through that in 2 weeks. But so that's 2 weeks, and I got six. And then you're
Yeah.
like, okay, so I meet them, you meet them, then you meet them, and then okay, who else meets them? And just trying to figure out, is it in person? Is it this or that? It's actually not that easy to get candidates through an interview process, depending on
Yeah.
how many rounds. Um, but it's possible. It's possible. We just have to make sure that everyone's on board and people prioritize the role as much as we are.
Yeah.
So, but
Uh,
but that's to me, 8 weeks is fast. 90 days, like 3 months, like doable.
mhm.
And a lot of searches take longer than that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. When I hear hiring fast, I think the same thing, which is what is fast for you?
Hmm.
You want it done in 8 weeks, as in offer signed, and let's consider the candidates need to give notice, their vesting period,
Oh
when
yeah.
can they start? So fast is when they're physically there, or fast as in you just want to run a really fast process. Does your hiring team know? Is somebody on vacation for the next 3 weeks
Right.
and they're just gumming up the works? Like there's a lot of pieces in there that I think it's really easy to just say I want to hire fast. Like and what are indicators of fast? Scheduled interviews within 24, 48 hours, or fast as in getting feedback? What if somebody on your team doesn't turn around and tell you what the outcome of their interview was? Did you prepare them what to ask the candidate? Is there a rubric? Are you fast as in, let's say we submit candidates to you. How quickly do you review them and come back to us with feedback? I think those all play into fast, but I think it's really easy to say, I want fast without really quantifying what fast could look like for you.
You brought up a lot of good points, and there's all these points that can be bottlenecks.
Yeah.
It can be feedback, it can be scheduling, it can be, is it a dynamic where you're submitting candidates and asking for feedback? Is it a dynamic where you're just setting up people? And usually I find that in the beginning I want to ask for feedback because I don't know you all yet. But then as we have some interviews and we gain trust and we understand what the role is, and it's just setting people up, right? Maybe it's a little bit less waiting, but the internal feedback loops and like you said, vacations and all that kind of stuff, that plays into it. And I've found that we can step in and
Hmm.
speed things up, but we also don't know, we don't work at the company, we don't want to overstep, so we have to figure out, there's the whole triangle of internal recruiter, external recruiter, hiring manager. Sometimes it becomes a hexagon, there's other people, and we have to figure out where do we fit in, and how much do you want us to do and not do, right?
Oh, and
So,
let's not even forget the candidate side. What if
right,
they're
and they're part of it too.
traveling?
Yes, of
Right. And
course.
they have
Yeah.
their schedule and they've got their choices. And what if you're the number two choice and you want to move quickly and
Yes.
their number one choice is moving slow? Well, guess what? We're all in it for the ride. So I think part of identifying what hiring fast is for you is first go when do you physically need somebody sitting at yesterday? I hear that a
Hmm.
lot too.
Yes.
And let's realistically go, okay, how long is it going to take? Because it's going to be around 10 12 interviews that you and your team are going to conduct, whether that's the same candidate on a couple of rounds or that's a few candidates on multiple rounds that you're going to need to fit into your schedule. And if we can think through that piece, it's usually like Summer said, somewhere around the 8-week mark is really good for executive search. The one that you go out to market and you talk to passive and active candidates to find the best people. Could you do it faster? Maybe if you accelerate your interview process, you minimize the number of steps and you're quite quick in your feedback loops. Yes, you can get it done faster. The fastest interview I've ever had happen and a placement I've done is 24 hours.
Get out.
No, really. I had a product manager, like a head of product management, meet with the CEO. 2 hours later, I get the call from the CEO and said I hired him. One time in 20 years.
Can't even believe it. I've
But
never seen that.
there was no process. There was
Okay.
no feedback loop. It was
Right.
the CEO making the decision of a company of three.
Okay.
So
Yeah. That was my next
can,
question is
can it be done? Yes.
does this change depending on the size of the company? What have you seen?
The answer is yes. Partly because there is no other people to gum up the
Mhm.
works, so to speak, right? There's no 17 other people to coordinate and their admin to get something scheduled to move meetings around to get this person to meet with this person. So yes, you remove a lot of those little tricky bits in between. That said, that doesn't mean that the decisioning is going to move any faster. It just means that at least logistically it could move faster.
Hmm.
Now, with a smaller size company, fewer decision makers, of course it's going to move faster.
And I think the fastest I've seen is maybe 50 days or something like that. But typically it's because that's my timeline, not
Yeah.
how long the role's been open timeline.
Right.
Like they've already gone through those iterations on their own. They've already met people. They already know what good looks like. They know what they want because they've had all that pain and suffering maybe for a few months
Yep.
before they retained a firm,
Right.
and then you show up with here, here's a good short list. They're like, okay, let's go.
They're
Versus
ready.
when you get a search that's brand new, we've never filled this role before. No one's been in this role before. It's a new title here and let's go. And then it can take a lot longer because
It's
there's just a lot of
discovery.
yes.
Yeah. Well, on average, the market tells us it's around 3 to 6 months for an executive search. And
Hmm.
I've been part of executive searches, whether that's a recipient of a firm
Hmm.
that we hired to fill an executive role or been the firm that got hired. I've seen searches go on for 9 to 12 months.
Me too.
And the reality is a lot of it could be the quality of the search itself, sure, but there's also the changing needs of an organization. I mean, 6 months could be a difference between two positive quarters and two down quarters.
Right.
3 months could be the change of a team of 5 to 15. So it's really hard to pinpoint and say, look, the search has been going on. What's wrong with it? I think part of it is the moving changes, ebbs and flows of an organization and what that particular definition of that role is right now.
All right. You made me think of something. So when it's slow or when it's fast, what separates great hiring managers from the rest in terms of speeding things up? Like how involved are they? What can they do to affect the speed of a search?
Oh, heaps. I think one of the easiest ways to think about this is I quantify it in terms of pain. The hiring manager is the person that experiences the most pain due to this vacancy. So if a hiring manager is very involved, meaning they're in lockstep with the recruiting partner, whether that's internal or external search, what is happening at every step of the way, I think the outcomes can be much faster and much more positive because the hiring manager knows where the candidate is in the process, who has yet to meet with them, what the other interviewers need to know before meeting with the candidate, being in the driver's seat of being in that debrief the day of or the next day. Because let's be real, interviews can sometimes blur together. Or if you have multiple days in between, it's just really hard to recall a lot of that interview experience with the candidate. So I've seen if a hiring manager is very involved in the interview process, the outcome is faster and higher quality. The ownership is really with the hiring manager, as with every other responsibility that you carry, of course. But if this is your hire, you affect it.
I was just reflecting as you were talking about that on a search I worked on years ago where okay, this is embarrassing. I shouldn't even say it, but I sent in almost 40 candidates, like 40, VP
Mm.
level, like good
Ah,
people.
right.
And
Ah.
and the issue was, and there are a few issues, but um hiring manager's great, very well respected, great person, but they were hard to reach.
Mm.
And some of the people on the interview panel were sabotaging the search. Either they wanted the role themselves or they just didn't sell it. And I'm not
Mm.
asking anyone to ever lie, but they just didn't sell it. Like you're recruiting. Yeah, come on. So it was, I would get people to the table, but then they would withdraw at some
Mm.
point, and it was a tricky one because I felt like I didn't work there and I didn't know how to change things.
Mm.
It was tricky. And I was a lot younger then. I was inexperienced. Maybe I could have done more and been more aggressive or more something, or set things up better in the beginning. So all of this, helps you learn, right? So you don't run into that again. And if it's all, like how do you get good at the 10,000 hours thing, right? But
Do 10,000 hours worth
right,
of it.
just do all of it all the time. They're like, not doing that again.
Yep.
But I think it's both the hiring manager and the internal TA partner, talent acquisition talent, like whoever you're working with, head of recruiting, needs to have that authority, because I
Mm.
feel like we also each play a part. And maybe if I didn't have the voice to speak up, like they could have or something. It was just, I don't know. It was one of those tricky ones, but it's also, so whenever I see a direct report to the
Yeah.
role interviewing my candidate, I remember, I remember the sabotaging back in the day. And I make sure to understand how that's going to go. And does this
Yeah.
person want the job? And
Yeah.
what can they expect? And then I prep the candidate appropriately of, look, all you need to do is make sure this person wants to work for you.
Yeah.
And so it's not an interview. I mean, it is, but they need to come out of that meeting like, I want to work for you. You can teach me things. So I learned through that, but I think
Yeah.
there could be so many places where these things fall apart. It doesn't have to just be speed to find candidates. It
Oh
can just be,
no.
why are they falling through? What's going on? So
You're absolutely right. And I think part of that over time is learning to ask those questions even in the very beginning of the search. Hey, by the way, you're hiring this VP, you're hiring this senior VP, the senior director person. Did anybody internally want that job? Yes. Are they part of the interview process?
right.
Yes. How
Yes,
do you win them over? Right? Like
yes. I
you ask
cover
those
that now.
questions.
Like, why
Yeah.
aren't you promoting anyone? Yes, I never
Yeah.
used to ask that in the brief.
Yes.
Yes.
And suddenly it's like, oh, that's very important. And
Hmm.
then it's where did the other candidates fall short? How long have you been doing this? Oh, I've been looking for 12 months. Oh, and you want me to fill this in 8 weeks? Okay. Yes. What's going to be different?
Right.
Other than me,
Other than
what
my
is going to be
voice. Yeah.
different?
Yeah.
Yes. So I think a lot of this too is contextual and data oriented. Oh, okay. So you younger Somer sent 40 candidates in and 19 of the 20 withdrew and the other 21 didn't make the cut.
Right.
Ooh, let's talk about that. It's a 50% withdrawal rate. What's going on?
I love this topic though of hiring
Yeah.
fast. And
Yeah, what is fast, right? I think that's just a hire well. What's what does that even mean, right? You can always hire fast. You can hire anybody off the street quickly.
true.
Yeah. And what's the
Right.
likelihood that they'll
Right.
excel in the role? I don't
Right.
know.
That's the other thing I talk about is just how many things are we sticking in cement when we kick
I don't
something
know.
off in terms of, like, here's the compensation, here's the location, here's the skill set, here's this, here's that. So every one of those you throw in like in a pole in the cement, you're adding time. Play around with all the different things, and I always talk about levers we're pulling. And if you want to negotiate time, fine. But if you want to hire fast, you might have to negotiate some other things, So, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to settle. I'm not saying you have to settle. I'm just saying people can have, I can go and look for your person with all those things forever, like forever.
You just opened up a whole nother can of worms because the reality is we can talk about the definitions of what a good hire even means.
Right.
Are you hiring 10 out of 10 things that you're looking for? Oh, guess what? That person's already doing that job. Why would they want this one?
Right. I'm smiling because I think that's the next podcast.
Oh, I think
I
it's
think,
right. Oh, we'll leave you on that note, right?
yeah, I think so because I could start that up right now about positioning and career path and all of that. So yeah, I think that's a good one. But
Yeah.
yeah, hire fast I guess means something different to everyone. But
Yeah.
uh but yeah, there's ways to do it. But I think ultimately in the day it's like
I'd
whose
say
problem is
baby
it?
steps.
Yeah,
Baby
baby
steps
steps.
maybe. Hire
Yeah.
faster.
Ooh.
Maybe a good one to start. Now we're now we're splitting hairs, but I'll leave you on that note. Thank you, Summer.